Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are back here for episode 87 of the Friday Night Movie Club. And you know, when I started this podcast, it's been like 2 years now, I envisioned this being the core group for the show here. The only problem is that a certain somebody only shows up to my show once every 3 months. So that never came to fruition. But hey, we're here now. We're here tonight. And I got my lovely group of film reviewing buddies. Can we call ourselves Film Twitter? Is that too cringe?
I'm assuming it's super
we
like
can't call ourselves
Film Twitter because Film Twitter's
very
assholes. So it's
I don't know if we can use cinema intelligentsia.
No, absolutely not. But I am joined here tonight by good buddy Rob Motto. How you doing, that Rob?
I'm pretty good. I saw Deadpool a couple hours ago. I'm very tired.
Well, get ready because we're in for a long night. Also, our good buddy Rick Aragon's just back in. How you doing, Rick?
I'm doing all right. I have survived.
And then, of course, our lovely guest is back with us here tonight. Sarah Hargett, how you doing?
I'm really glad that I actually saw a movie in time to be on the podcast this time.
I know, right? It's a rarity. This might be, the second time? Do you remember the last time you were on here to actually review a movie? Has it been that long?
Might be Jaws. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I thought she might be Frozen too. That might also.
Yeah, I think it was Jaws.
It's been just a little bit here. So for those guys who wasn't watching us last night, there we go. But for those who were watching us last night, I was on Comics Division show, and we were basically talking about this film, and we had a pretty intense argument about this film. Not only just about this one, but about a couple other films related to, I guess, this whole Fox Disney MCU debacle, I guess you could say. And I was hoping our good buddy Culture Casino was going to be here. He did said that he was going to try to make it here tonight, but it looks like he's either running late. Maybe he'll be here a little bit later on here because I didn't want to kind of get into it with him, try to see if I can make him angry. But we can go ahead and get started without him. By the way, just in case you guys didn't know, we are live on YouTube tonight. I see people trickling in. I see people trickling in on our Rumble side, and we're on Twitch as well. So let's go ahead and get this show on the road here. This is episode 33 officially of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as we've been calling it here for the last several years, the longest reigning cinematic soap opera of all time. So this is the officially third episode of this whole movie franchise, not including any of the Disney Plus stuff or any of like the cartoons or stuff like that. It's just strictly the movies and pretty much nothing else. We ended up starting it in a weird way last night, because I think what happened was that in order to kind of explain how we got to Deadpool and Wolverine, we really need to go back to Logan here. Now, who here actually saw Logan in 2017?
I did.
So assuming everyone saw it. I was under the impression, just like a lot of people, that Logan was actually a pretty good movie. It was a pretty solid film. It was a solid change of pace. And at the time, it was Hugh Jackman's final goodbye of playing the character of Wolverine after he had played it for almost 20 years up to that point, right? So that's what I assumed, and we watched the movie, and it's like, okay, this is all pretty good, and I didn't really have much bad to say about it. I think I gave it like a 4 out of 5. It's still like one of my, I think it was an honorable mention. I don't think it made my top 10 of that year, but it was still a pretty good film. And then I heard last night that apparently some of the reactions from a lot of the guys in the rooms that they did not like the Logan film as much as I did, or as much as we did. And I guess the complaint about it was that it was too dark, it was too boring because it was too dark. It wasn't in a very exciting movie, and a lot of people thought that it was deconstructing the character of Wolverine. Well, it's like, well, yeah, structurally, it's not a Wolverine movie. Like, he's not in the suit, he's not like fighting bad guys. It's very much just like the title says, a Logan movie. And we even got into an argument about the director of that film, who, if you remember, was the same guy who directed my favorite movie of 2019, a little film called Ford vs. Ferrari. So I had to like step in and be like, okay, I think you guys are beating the whole just a little too much here with this one. But apparently, there were people out there who did not like the Logan movie, and you're going to see a big contrast here for people who didn't like this movie versus the ones that absolutely loved the movie that we're going to be talking about here tonight, which is Wolverine versus Deadpool. So how do we get here? About 7 years ago, Disney bought the rights to 20th Century Fox, bought the entire library. There was a few things they couldn't purchase, obviously, for monopoly reasons, like they couldn't buy like Fox News or the Fox Broadcasting, stuff like that. So that got split up to Fox Corp, its own separate brand. But for the most part, they took all the money-making assets of Fox. And remember at the time, because we did talk about this for several years, at the time, everyone in their mind was thinking about, oh my God, we're going to get Wolverine versus the Hulk in a movie now. We're going to get the X-Men versus the Avengers, all of these like crazy team ups people were dreaming of when Disney owned the rights to this. And I was saying back then, I even have a few articles up there still up to this day saying that this is not going to end the way that you guys think that it's going to end. And here we are 7 years later after the purchase was finalized. And this is literally the first project that the MCU has done revolving any of the characters that they bought from 20th Century Fox. And it's essentially a swan song to the entire film library of 20th Century Fox to lead up to this. So I want to get started with this conversation here before we get into the actual movie. Obviously a big stink was made about, the MCU finally obtaining the rights to Deadpool and the X-Men and Fantastic Four and all these other characters and stuff like that. But as we see, it's going to get buried very, very quickly here. Rob, when they first made that purchase a few years ago, did you have any kind of hopes of some kind of crazy superhero team up like a Secret Wars we're going to be seeing here in a few years? What was kind of your general thoughts on the direction that Fox was going to go before the Disney merger and pretty much where they are now?
Simple answer there is no, just because I was pretty much out on anything Marvel related at about Age of Ultron, which I think was 2015. So, I mean, I thought it was interesting. I actually thought it was annoying at first because everybody on Twitter was like, "Oh, the alien queen is a Disney princess now." That's what I saw. Those stupid fucking memes about, these characters are Disney characters now. But whatever, it's fine. But no, there was the potential for some really crazy creative ideas, especially in terms of Marvel Comics. Marvel Comics, they have crazy, amazing crossovers, characters interacting with one another, whatever. So yeah, that could have been a direction they went. It just seemed like they didn't have the the ideas for the execution or any interest in doing that. I'm trying not to talk about the movie here, but this whole movie is kind of a deconstruction. So when you just said that people consider Logan is the deconstruct, I completely think that's nonsense, because it's like Logan is more or less is James Mangold trying to do like a personal / realistic, and I know that's crazy because it's Logan, you know what I mean? It's a guy that has adamantium coming out of his knuckles. But it did have more of like a Dark Knight kind of realism, grittiness to it, where I don't know, I connected to the character, you know what I mean, in a non-cartoonish way. I thought it was pretty good. If I'm being a dick, I would there's things I nitpick, but that's a really good comic book movie when
Yeah.
it's all said and done.
Yeah, but I mean, they weren't, doing bye while killing a bunch of people. So maybe that's why. We'll get to that later on. Sarah, obviously you're known for being a notorious MCU hater, probably even more so than Rick. So, what was your thoughts on kind of the Fox universe, the Fox side of things of all the Disney movies? Just going back to like obviously the Blade, the X-Men, the Deadpool movies up to this point before the Disney purchase.
I mean, I liked them. I liked all the superhero movies back then. So it wasn't like I didn't start hating superhero movies until the MCU was taking over everything. So I remember enjoying all those X-Men movies and the Electro movie and Daredevil. Even though they're kind of silly, that was at a time when I just enjoyed movies and didn't really judge them when I saw them. So you're muted, Rick.
I'm about to say, is Rick like fighting a green screen? Like, what is he doing?
No. I know I was
doing
muted. I know I was muted, but you know what I'm
But I
giving
got
you.
it anyway.
Yes, that's why I'm muted. So
Yeah,
I
I
know.
got it.
No.
Mm-hmm. But so, Rick, what was your thoughts on the Fox era of I guess the Marvel Cinematic Universe? I guess you can call it here, because, like I said, this is pretty much the hey, we're gonna give these guys one last run, and then it's over. We're done with all this now.
Well, as someone who really would not know the difference between Marvel and DC or Fox, they all look the same to me. I would say that I'm with Sarah. I enjoyed the first two X-Men movies. Was the Last Stand was terrible, and most of the others have been terrible. Although I have not hated.
First Class was good.
Yeah, I haven't hated. I mean, I didn't hate Dark Phoenix, and I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I was never so invested that I was going to say, oh wow, now we're going to get these two different teams to join forces. It's like
exactly.
The Fantastic Four are going to be fighting along with the Avengers. I mean, I really didn't care, and I was genuinely surprised that there were people over the age of 14 who did care and who were that eager for.
I would go way higher than 14. I would go at least 35.
No, I meant anyone over 14 who really cared. I don't know why they would, but I really didn't care one way or the other. Those movies are fine. I like First Class. I like some of the younger ones, Days of Future Past. Those, but not the last one, not the last few ones. I feel bad for Michael Fassbender, who's kind of
the Apocalypse movie was terrible.
Yeah,
and
I was
Dark
like
Phoenix
the one
was
with
terrible.
Oscar Isaac. That was bad.
And then Origins Wolverine was absolutely satanic. What was that last one that came out during the pandemic, or was one of the first films that came out during the pandemic? And they're all like in that little insane asylum.
New Mutants.
New Mutants. Yeah, that was acceptable. I mean, it was fine, especially considering people were being finally allowed to leave their homes after being under house arrest. So
I just heard from people who saw that was terribly not a good movie. So
it was not a good movie.
Excited for it. That was the problem.
Was
so
Anya
cool.
Taylor-Joy in that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay,
and
because
the
I
chick
vaguely remember it. I barely remember it.
Her and the chick from Game of Thrones, not the drunk chick, but the other one.
The Joe
one
Jonas
who played.
Oh no, that's the drunk chick. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean it was fine.
Maisie Williams, I think.
Yeah,
Maisie,
that's her. Yep, that's her.
But
yeah.
I think people spent way too much time fan casting and seeing all of these various worlds collide to really concentrate on whether or not they'd even make a good standalone movie, which I don't think we really saw here. But we'll get into the movie a little later.
Well, so this brings us up to where we're at now, because they decided after purchasing the Fox universe, it's like, hey, we have Deadpool. However, the first movie was a hit, especially for a rated R movie. It finally got a rated R, fast quipping, violent, comic book movie. Then we got the second one that came out about a couple years after that one, and the second one is pretty much notoriously known that one was a letdown from the first one, so it was not as good quality-wise as the first Deadpool movie. And after a while, the whole thing just kind of got put on ice for a minute. Like Ryan Reynolds was doing a whole bunch of other projects completely outside of the Marvel thing. Marvel really didn't know what they were going to do with Deadpool. You know, there was arguments back and forth for a while about, are we even going to allow this to be rated R, because it's Disney. We're not known for rated R entertainment. So, but they knew that there's no way in hell that they were going to get away with a PG-13 Deadpool movie. Like it's just not going to happen, right? So they eventually caved, and then they made the announcement that, okay, not only we're going to do another Deadpool movie, but we're going to bring back Hugh Jackman, who's now 55 years old, to play Wolverine again, literally 7 years after he just retired from the role in the film Logan. So it's like, okay, well, how are we going to move this all together? Because, I mean, he very clearly died at the end of the Logan movie, so it's like you can't keep that version of Wolverine going, but it just so happens we're in the multiverse saga now, so we can basically pull whatever character from whatever universe we want to, and it really doesn't matter at the end of the day because no one actually stays dead. And like I said, this is a big point of contention for a lot of people. They even had to go and do a video when they were promoting this film, talking about, hey, all you fans of Logan out there, don't worry, this isn't going to affect Logan whatsoever. No, this is going to be its own little thing. And then, of course, we get the opening segment of the movie, of course. But kind of get into like where we're at. This is where we're at with the MCU. They're in a position right now with this whole MCU where they're desperate for anything, because the last several movies that they've released have all been just one disappointment after another, after another, after another. The last MCU film that we saw was last year's Marvels, which ended up being the lowest drawing MCU film ever. Like, I think they only did like about a little over $200 million, which doesn't even meet its production budget. So that was a massive money loss for Disney. Outside of that, they hadn't really expired anyone else. They had like Black Panther 2 and Thor 4 and Guardians 3. Like, none of these movies are really like anything to like sing home about. So, and you look into the future here, they got the Black Captain America movie, which are almost at a $400 million production budget at this point, thanks to 3 separate reshoots for this movie, which is always a good sign. That's going to be great. We have the Thunderbolts, which is being worked on right now, and then maybe in like 2 years we may get a King Dynasty, even though we don't have a King or an Avengers or a team. We don't really have anything, so they're
we have the Young Avengers.
That's a side project that they claim they're gonna work on. It's like you don't even have an Avengers yet, so why are we working on a Young Avengers movie at that point? But so Disney is very much. God. Disney is very much putting all their eggs in this basket that this film is the one that's going to bring them back to prominence. Now, looking at the early box office returns, it looks like this one will be a major hit, but I don't know if this is going to be enough to save the MCU from the plans that they have moving forward here. So I guess that kind of gets us into the introduction here of Deadpool. This comes immediately based on the ending of Deadpool 2, which some of you guys may or may not remember, that Deadpool got his hands on Cable's time machine and just started killing a bunch of people from his past and trying to like rewrite in the past, screwed everything up. And somebody, I think it was Brahma Bull, mentioned last night on the show that that's actually a plot hole, because a time machine will only take you back to your own timeline and your own universe. So it's like, how did Deadpool end up in the MCU universe interviewing for a job?
That's only
he
a
got the
plot
TARDIS
hole in the light of this movie, though.
Yeah,
Because
well, he got a hold of the TARDIS.
For the other Deadpool movie, it's all in Ryan Reynolds' timeline.
Yeah, that's the question. It's like, how did he get into? I don't think they explain how he got into the was it the sacred timeline is what they're calling it now.
Yeah.
How many times do I have to go over this with you guys? Seriously, we know why. We know why.
It's bad storytelling. It doesn't
because
matter.
the plot requires it too.
But it doesn't matter because it's so bad in terms of using it as a device.
And note that it does. I maybe we're jumping a little bit ahead of time, ahead of things, but it does have 5 credited screenwriters.
6 actually, if you count the comic book writers of Deadpool itself, who gets like an accreditation.
I thought that would be 7. Were there 2 creators?
Oh, yeah, you're right. So I think it
doesn't surprise me because they threw so much shit at the wall just to be like, "Hey, look at all this stuff."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and one of them writers was Ryan Reynolds, one of the credited screenwriters.
No, yeah, we can tell that he. Yeah, exactly. We can tell he had free reign in this movie. So we start off with this film, and we leave off not off of the events of Deadpool 2, but we're set basically right after the events of Logan, because Deadpool is now in the universe that Logan died. He basically desecrates his corpse. It's like he's digging him up for reasons that we don't know just yet, and all of a sudden the TVA shows up. Now here's where in order to understand anything that's going on with this movie, you have to know the lore of not only just everything MCU related, but you pretty much have to know the lore of like every comic book movie of the last 25 years to get every single, even not only just the movies itself, rumors of movie that never actually came to be. We'll talk about that here too. But the TVA shows up, which is obviously a reference to the Loki TV show on Disney Plus. So now he's in violation. So what are we gonna do here? Well, opening montage, we're gonna have Deadpool kill a bunch of nameless faces TVA agents with NSYNC's Bye 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 playing in the screen. Now I get that this is supposed to be the comedy bit that people were supposed to be like laughing hilariously at the movie theater at this bit. But to me, this part was so forced because it was almost like I can see the please laugh button like on the corner of the screen as this was going on, and you got
I thought this was funny.
As I said, I know that this is exactly what they were going for. But for me, it was like it was so forced and out of place. And I thought, okay, if this is just like the opening bit, fine, I can give it a pass. But this theme of like really terrible pop songs being played throughout action sequences of the movie just kept going over and over
Yeah,
again.
that's my favorite thing about these movies is the music.
Of course, it is the one thing you can find to enjoy is the musical choices. So I guess we'll start with you, Rob, because I know you took exception to this too. What was your thoughts on the opening sequence here? Are you a big NSYNC fan? Did this this make you inclined to the movie here?
Yeah, no, I'm not a big NSYNC fan, but you know, it's funny you mentioned the soundtrack because this whole soundtrack is music I grew up with. You know, what I mean, very like
Yeah.
Avril Lavigne, like I'm with you from like 2003. I mean, I
Yep.
was 14 when that came out. You know what I mean? It's like yeah, it hit a certain chord, but it's like the selection of the song, the choreography, the over stylization of the action and violence, like it's again, I would much prefer they just rip off Sergio Leone and do like a serious style like Kill Bill, like a serious stylized pastiche of something instead of this try hard, please laugh sort of pop culture nostalgia trip into the past. You know what I mean? Like the violent, like it's that you see a lot of blood, there's a lot of violence, but it doesn't land. It
Yeah.
feels airless. It feels empty. It doesn't have any impact on the storytelling. It's just kind of like shit happening on screen, which again, I like action
It's the
movies. I
credit
like,
sequence.
but it's undercut by this ridiculous sort of like, hey, look at me. I'm in front of the camera. Yeah, you fucking douchebag. Please get off. Please get out. Go. Bye.
I will say this just real quick, and I'll let you go, Sarah. Is that what I saw the kills in the movie too? Because remember, I just brought this up, or a movie I reviewed a couple of weeks ago called Kill, ironically enough, which is an Indian film. And one of the points that I made about that film, why it was so good, is because unlike a film like this, where you just see people get like their heads lopped off and it kind of means nothing, in that film, even though there was a bunch of people dying, they made you feel every single kill because every person who died was actually important to somebody in the movie. So it wasn't just like, oh, we just cut this guy's head off and move on to like the next guy. I was like, oh, that was so and so's father, that was so and so's brother. And now the stakes have changed a little bit more now. So to go from that to essentially going back to, oh, we're just killing nameless faceless people for gags again. It's like it kind of felt like a step down from that instance, but that's comparing one movie to another. So maybe that's not completely fair. But Sarah, what was your take of the opening outside of obviously the cheesy pop songs?
Well, I don't want to feel the kills in this movie. I like the point of the movie is to have fun. If you're feeling the kills, then you're not having fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who
Was
said we're
that
having
Indian
fun?
movie fun?
No, this wasn't fun.
Don't
I don't
listen to
know.
Rick. He's a hater.
Um, I should probably mention that I like Deadpool 2 better than Deadpool. So,
Really?
like, my style is that much more. I like the silliness. I like to just have fun with it. So, I enjoyed this, the opening sequence in this. I was laughing every time the dance pool guy was gone. It was dancing and stuff. I was like, yeah, this is great. I like it. Sorry.
Rick, I think you disagree with that take. What was your take on the opening
Well,
here?
to be perfectly honest, I don't think I saw Deadpool 2. If I did, I do not remember it at all. Um, I thought it wasn't funny. I know that a lot of people in the theater were laughing, but it's too too obvious that, oh yes, let's go ahead and let's bring up Hugh Jackman's name in all this. I'm surprised they didn't do like a little Simpsons thing with the skull and go Camptown Races sing the song. I mean, it just seemed silly, not funny, and
That part I
too,
agree
too
with.
forced. Too forced. It just seemed too forced. Like, oh yes, look, aren't we being funny in all of this as we see the skull fly out at you and the various bows, and oh yes, the human body is made up of what, 236 bones, 237 when what was it, when I see
Gossip Girl,
girl.
because of Blake Lively, who's his wife. Yeah,
Oh.
It took me a second. I was like, was that a reference to his wife? I hate you.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
there's
we'll get to
there's
his
way
wife
too
later
much.
on too.
Yeah,
So
there's
Yeah.
way too much too self. I think I put this in the very beginning, the voiceover with Snark. It's too self-referential, and like, I
and,
don't need this. And
and
yeah,
another thing,
the dance was bad.
and then the
Yeah.
other thing about the opening, just real quick, is that like I said, because they're basically going right off of what happened at the end of Logan. So Logan, as we mentioned, was like a very powerful, like very like an emotional, like darker film. And then this film, and I understand it's Deadpool in the context, but by essentially like playing around with the corpse of like Wolverine, you basically like threw away all of like the emotional levity of that last film, which was supposed to be the last time we saw Wolverine. And let's be honest, the only reason why they brought him back, which they make a few references to in this movie, is because they paid him a dump truck full of money to bring him back for another movie for Disney too.
Yeah. No, I heard that he wanted to come back. I heard that he called Ryan Reynolds and was like, "I want to be in your next movie."
I don't believe you. I don't
You don't
believe you.
believe me?
You
Besides,
don't believe? I
don't
don't
know.
believe that
heard
you
it
heard that.
secondhand, so-
Besides, they didn't. They spent more money on Chris Evans. Don't you remember that line?
Yeah,
Just think
because
of the
Chris
just think
Evans
of money. Just think of the money.
didn't
What
want to
he's doing
be
to the
in
budget.
it.
Oh, well, he didn't. That he didn't have to accept the role, did he? Unless he's
Well, they've been
contractually
Well,
teasing
they
obligated.
paid him a lot. He wanted
both
to be in it for this amount of money. Hugh
Yeah,
Jackman just wanted to be in it. That's what I heard.
I don't believe. Yeah. Well, no. I
No,
don't
both
believe-
Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman have been teasing this for years. If you followed
Yeah.
like their social media stuff, and I am
Yeah, you
only
can tell they're
vaguely aware of
excited
it,
about
but yes.
Well, I mean, they've been teasing this ever since, what was that, the Wolverine, was it
X-Men
Origin?
X-Men
Or
Origins.
X-Men Origins, yeah, where
Yeah.
the bad version of Deadpool was in that film, and they've been trying to like make up for that one like ever since. So they've been teasing this like for a while now. So I figured this is probably the last chance that they would get it done. But so you get that opening sequence, and the next thing you know, you're sitting back to the sacred timeline, and now Deadpool is trying to interview for a spot with the Avengers. However, the Avengers are basically, oh, not the Avengers, basically Happy was like, no, we don't really need you. You're not exactly like Avengers material. So because he got rejected by the Avengers, his life goes into a downward spiral, and well, he just becomes a used car salesman. His wife, I mean, not his wife, well, I guess it kind of was his wife, but his girlfriend breaks up with him, so he doesn't have his girlfriend anymore, and he's just kind of like an average, everyday Joe Schmo, and that's kind of like the whole setup here to the film, which kind of seems like they didn't really have, like, how... I mean, it just seems like they didn't really have, like, hey, how do we justify essentially moving on from where we left off with Deadpool 2? And it feels like this is probably the best that they can come up with. So it's like, hey, let's just have like a surprise party for Deadpool where all his friends show up. So that way you guys understand that, no, these are all the people in his life that he truly cares about. So when the threat of all of them being taken away comes in, this is where the stakes start to rise. So Deadpool gets taken to the TVA center. Like I said, this is all based on the Loki TV show. So if you guys haven't seen Loki, you probably don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, that would be me.
I understood it. I haven't seen Loki, and I understood it. I didn't know that it was from Loki, but I understood. What was
No.
going on.
I mean, I
Well,
followed
they
it. It's
referenced
just,
it. They
but yeah,
referenced
there
it.
is a sort of a lot of like, oh, hey, we're just doing this, and we're gonna go with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So-
I thought I
Yeah.
didn't.
It was fine. Yeah, I wasn't gonna nitpick at that.
So the guy here is Mr. Paradox, right? That's this guy's name.
Yes.
So
Matthew McFadden, yeah.
Yep. So the concept here is that, hey, Deadpool, I'm giving you an opportunity to go join the Avengers in another universe. So of course Deadpool is all in on it. What he doesn't realize is that basically he's leaving his own universe, which is set for destruction because Logan died in the other film. Which I don't know if was Logan supposed to be in the same universe as Deadpool? Was that a thing that was supposed to happen? Because I guess what they said is that because Logan died at the end of that other movie, that Deadpool's universe essentially became like unstable to a medicine because he was like an anchor character or something like that.
Oh, geez, yeah, that's right.
Anger character. That sounds I mean, the concept sounds familiar. Like if
Mhm.
one character disappears, all the others are affected.
I'm pretty sure it was something that they alluded to in like Into the Spider-Verse, but I don't vaguely remember that second one.
Oh
because it
yes,
was
I think I put that in my notes. I think anger being isn't that across the Spider Verse.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah.
So,
But look,
but
if
Spider-Verse is Sony, and this is Fox, so it's like, well, how does
yeah,
that
but
make
I
any
mean,
sense?
but the concept, but it's the thinking of that. Uh, I don't get why Logan would be the anchor baby for the
Especially
Because it
since it's
needs to be.
Deadpool's
It
universe.
yeah. Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. A Mexican man using Anchor Baby is very funny.
That's throwing that out for you, Roberto, and you're a quarter
Mhm.
Mexican. No, I don't understand why he had to be an anchor being. And if this Deadpool, is part
Mhm.
of the Logan universe, does that mean that all the X-Men movies and Charles Xavier, Magneto, all of those are also part of his world?
Well, the thing about the universe thing is you could have a universe where Deadpool is where Logan happens, but also a universe where Logan happens but Deadpool isn't. And the Logan movie is a completely different universe from the Deadpool movie, but the Logan movie still happens in the Deadpool movie, but it's two separate things. You know?
And
It's
even
the
Logan was supposed to
possibilities are
be,
infinite.
and even Logan was supposed to be like an alternate, like dystopian, like future that was kind of set apart from like all the other like
Exactly.
X-Men
So
movies,
that
right?
wasn't
So
they're separate. But in Deadpool's universe he still dies, you know?
yeah.
So it's not necessarily the
Is this
same.
not trying to make things too complicated and
Y'all thinking
convoluted?
about it way too hard, guys.
Okay, but
Hmm.
the whole
It's supposed to be a
multiverse thing, this
comedy.
is what I mean about bad storytelling. And James Mangold, by the way, made this point in an interview recently, but he got slammed for or whatever. But it's like the whole like it's a lazy way to tell a story.
Yeah.
Hey, it's a different
Well,
universe. It's like, okay, you're just throwing something out and starting anew then.
So
That's
the
yeah,
literally
because
what
they
you're
made too
doing.
many mistakes.
the stakes are never high. You never really care
Because you
because
could
Yeah.
just throw one away and
yeah.
start
Well, to
over.
be fair, there's no Dragon Balls in this universe, so they can't just wish Wolverine back to life. So they have to find some kind of way to bring him back, even though
Yeah.
he's already dead, right?
Yeah. It probably would have been better if they had just not acknowledged that movie at all.
But
But then the
but
whole
we
movie
really
is based around the multiverse,
but
so
did we really need another British a particular British actor to be one of the Wolverines? I don't know if I would spoil that or not.
Well, we'll get to the
Yeah.
cameos here in a
Yeah.
second because
Did we really need that?
there's a
Just
crap
spoil
ton
it.
of cameos.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, one of the cameos that Rick mentions was probably why he hated this movie. He's going to try to claim that it's
I
voicing
didn't even
Argyle
know
now.
it, all right, until
Was
that.
Henry Cavill was one of the alternate universe Wolverines. So here's setup here. So Deadpool figures to himself, well, if Logan dying is destroying my universe, then I'm gonna go to another universe and find another Wolverine to save my own land. So he just starts time jumping from like one universe to another to look for a Logan, and almost all of them kills him like immediately. Like he gets like ravished by. I'll admit that the comic accurate Wolverine I actually thought was pretty funny because everyone knows that the comic accurate Wolverine is supposed to be basically the same size as Kevin Hart. That's kind of like the whole play on like the Wolverine character. So there was a few nods here to like alternate versions of the comic book character that was pretty funny. But one of them was also Henry Cavill, who had a cameo here as one of the Wolverines. So was that something that bothered you, Rick? Did you not like seeing Cavill's face here in this movie?
I don't know
not
why,
like
because he is one of the most beautiful people in all human history. So of course I would enjoy seeing that. No, I just thought that's fan service and pointless. And it's like this movie is what 2 hours
This movie
plus.
is fan service, so
yeah, the
that's
whole
kind of the
Yeah.
movie's
point.
So why am I sitting here watching this montage that's leading nowhere?
I thought it was entertaining for the
I
record.
know
I
it's
just wanna-
for I know it's for the fans, and since I'm not a fan of any of this, like I'm just get to the point. And I do have a Ministry of Undead Warfare waiting for me to watch.
It's terrible. It's on my top 10 worst of the year so
no.
But
far.
it has Henry Cavill, one of the
He's awful in it. Alan Rick, whatever his face
but
is from
he's
Reacher.
but no
is
no
terrible.
no. Henry Cavill is his generation's like Alec Guinness, so he's one of the great actors of all time. How dare you? But it's like, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I got it. I got the joke. I just didn't find it funny. And that's a running theme.
I always say this to Rick's point, and this is something we acknowledged last night too, is that there's going to be a disconnect here with who's going to watch this movie, because obviously this is a complete fan service movie for people who have been fans of pretty much all the X-Men related, Fox content over the last, how long has it been now? Like 25 years? Because then the first X-Men movie come out like 99.
It was 2000, but yeah.
It was 2000. Okay,
Close
so
enough.
nearly 25 years. And so if you've been around for this long and you've kind of been like riding along up to this point, then yeah, there's a lot of Easter eggs in this movie that you will find enjoyable. However, you're just a normie who's like, oh, another comic book movie, let me go check it out. A lot of this stuff is going to fly completely over your head. Like, I don't know if the casual normie audience is going to understand all of the references and all the callbacks in this film who are super hardcore.
I got the fact that Wolverine's supposed to be short in the original comic book. That's why Hugh Jackman was wrong, and that's why James Marsden technically was wrong for Cyclops, because James Marsden is short, but Cyclops is supposed to be much taller. So I get that. That's fine if that's what you want to do. I just wasn't interested, and I wondered why Power of Love had to be playing through all of this. Is that like Back to the Future?
Because it's a montage.
Yes.
It's a montage.
I know it is a montage. It's just.
Do you though? Do you really?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Montage has to have music.
Right, but there's a skill and an art to putting a montage together.
Yeah, like here's the thing.
None of that was really
song other than Back to the Future.
I started to get really annoyed with the montages when they started playing T.I. randomly, and I was like, really? Is this what we're doing
with
in the middle
bring
of
him out thing? Is that
yeah.
T.I.? Yeah, okay. I was just like
yeah. It because you guys saw the first Suicide Squad movie, right? The one that came out 2016 with Will Smith. Yeah. Like they tried to do the same thing in that film, where it's like randomly they just started playing like Eminem's "Without Me," and I remember going at that time, it's like, what the hell is this music selection like for this film? Like, what are we doing here? And I felt the same way about this film, so you can't say that
this movie had good music taste.
At least they didn't play Eminem.
It's funny. Indirectly somehow it reminded me of American Psycho, because it has two songs in American Psycho: "Lady in Red" and whatever the hell that Madonna song is, "Like a Prayer."
Like a Prayer, yeah.
Yeah. So
I thought that was very funny. It does have Huey Lewis and
Huey Lewis and then I didn't even think about that, but you're right. Yeah. That's in there. Yep.
Yeah.
So the concept here is that he's found what they refer to as the worst Wolverine. So he's the worst of all the Wolverines out of all the multiverses here, because he let his group down. I guess they got killed later on. They mentioned what happened to it later. We'll get to that point here. But now him and Deadpool have been tossed into the void, and basically the void is all the thrown away 20th Century Fox characters that are no longer relevant to the MCU.
It's the island of misfit toys for the comic book,
or it's comic cinema's purgatory, as they refer to it in the movie. So they start fighting each other, obviously, because the whole bit is that these two just don't like each other, even though Deadpool's like a huge mark for Wolverine. And then all of a sudden, we start seeing some past characters, so some past Fox-related content. So you see Chris Evans makes an appearance, a surprise return to the MCU, and the play up of the bit is that, everyone thinks, it's Captain America. Captain America's back. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, he's Johnny Storm. Because remember, he played Johnny Storm in the Fantastic Four movies that no one liked from 20 years ago.
I like the second one.
Is that the one with the Galactus Cloud? Was that the Galactus Cloud movie?
Yeah, I like actually. I got the 2-disc.
So Evans came back, which is odd to me because Evans has made it very, very clear that he has absolutely no intentions of coming back to play Captain America again, but apparently he had no problem with coming back to play Johnny Storm. So it's a little bit of money, right? Funny. I mean, hey, look, outside of that, what was he doing before this? He was playing with Ana de Armas in that terrible Apple TV movie that they did last year. So, I mean, it's not like his career options have been much better than, hey, just come back and play Johnny Storm.
Well, he's got that Santa Claus movie coming up, so.
Oh, yeah, it looks terrible.
The Rock, yeah, that's... We'll talk about The Rock on another day. There's only so much douche I can
So
take.
I want to point something out real quick. There are these moments when, like the movie tries to have heart.
Yeah.
And like I'll be honest with you, like especially with Hugh Jackman, and I say this because I believe Hugh Jackman really is an excellent actor. I do think he, as a leading man, he's not a leading man in this movie, but he has the ability to make you believe in a 2-minute scene. This 2-minute scene where he's telling, he's I forget
Laura?
who it is, but yeah, he's telling somebody about his regret and what what he would like to hear from, or what he would like to be from Professor Xavier's point of view, what he saw in him and all this stuff. And like, that was good, but it's not based on anything. It has no foundation. And the fact that you have it in there, it's like you want people to have to care and to be invested in these characters, and yet you don't set them up with anything but fucking fart, dick, and sex jokes. So this is what irritates me so much. It's like you have the elements of like, you have like the pieces of a decent movie here, but you sell out for the joke. You sell out constantly. There's like 10 jokes a minute. And maybe that's an exaggeration, but it undercuts its own like movie. So
yeah, no,
I'm
what
not sure
I wrote down in my notes, why are we having, quote, touching moment with Lauren Wolverine in the middle of all this madness? It was like, it just felt out of place. It's like you need
we
one...
had plenty of that in Logan, right?
Well,
and it was way better in Logan.
I don't remember Logan. I have to watch it again.
Well, this is kind of where I disagree with the guys last night, because there was an argument last night about this being, I guess, the best representation of Wolverine out of all of the Fox related like movies up to this point. So this is including like X2 and some of the older X-Men films, and even Logan itself. And it wasn't until I realized some people dislike Logan that I could see it's like. So they were talking about, oh yeah, I really felt Logan's pain like as a character, and they did a great job with his character. It's like, yeah, but they did this with Logan. Like they did all of this like with Logan. They even allude to it in this film. Like they bring back the girl who played X-23 in the Logan movie and reunite them for this one. But their emotional connection was literally the entire driving factor of the Logan movie. Was the fact that he was willing to die for her to give her a chance, knowing that his time was like already up. So if you're going off of the emotional storytelling thing, it's like, well, they did this better in the last movie that he was just in. I don't see how you can say that this one was better than that film.
Yeah, it's because this movie spelled it out for them, and the other movie was too subtle.
Apparently, it was too deep and too dark, and like I said, some people were complaining that it was too boring because of its tone. But it was like,
see, I have to call bullshit on that, because it's like, how can you say it's the best representation of the character, and yet it's the most shallow examination of who the character is?
I'll tell you why. Because he got to wear the yellow costume, complete with mask, and grown men were crying.
Hugh Jackman makes a joke. He makes a joke in the original X-Men 2000. Yeah. It's like, what? Or no, it was Scott. It was Cyclops. He's like, would you expect us to wear yellow spandex?
That was a nice quip back then,
right?
But now these men who allegedly cried when they saw the yellow costume, I'm thinking, why? How old are you mentally to be crying at this?
I grew up with the X-Men cartoon. Like, I grew up with the animated. Like, if anybody should be, and I loved growing up with that. I love growing up with the movies, but this has not been a good franchise.
I mean, look, I'll put this in perspective.
Okay, I was just saying, as someone who loved Gambit, this was not the highlight for me.
Oh, that was terrible.
We'll get to him in a second, but for me, like, if you guys remember, like back, I don't know if you had this in your schools, Rob, but remember, like back in those days, like when you were in, I think it was like middle school, and they had that whole thing. It's like, oh, if you read a book and you do a test, you can like win prizes, trying to encourage like kids to read and whatnot. I was one of the kids that did that. I remember the first prize I ever got was literally a DVD of the first X-Men movie, right? So this is how far along I've been invested into the X-Men. This is what, 2001, I want to say. So this is like a long time ago. But at the same time, like, I'm not gonna like. I think some people may be a little too attached to some of these characters, not because of anything that we've seen like in the movies, just because they're attached to the character itself. So they may go back even further with like the comic book origins of this character. Maybe they're parlaying that emotion into it, but it's like, yeah, no, there was nothing in this film that made me remotely close of crying. Especially when, like I said, I've seen it better done in the last movie that he was actually in. It's like for me, this movie just feels like I said, one, it's a fan service to film, and it's really just, we're gonna pack in as many, jokes and references and other characters, because this movie is really, really heavy on memorabilia. I think I mentioned this last night too. That this is a super memorabilia heavy movie. This relies a lot on, oh, it's that one person from that one movie. It's like, oh, that's the other person from that other movie, and then that basically going off of you vaguely remembering that this person played that character 20 years ago,
And
right?
I barely remember some of them. And for the record, I did cry at Old Yeller because they do mention it. Yeah, we're gonna your Old Yeller My Universe. Like, I read the book and I saw the movie, and yes, those were good. But I didn't cry. I didn't cry at this, and I don't know why grown men were crying about the costume.
So let me ask you guys this: what do you guys think of the villain here? Because the villain is played by Emma Curran, who plays Cassandra Nova, the twin sister from another universe of Professor X, and she's basically just evil throughout the entire like movie. It's like she doesn't really go any more than that. A lot of people say that she was a good villain because they kept her evil and they didn't try to redeem her, even though they kind of teased it a little bit towards the end. But for me, here was my problem with her character. It's like, there really isn't much of a plot to this film when you really think about like what's happening in the grand scheme of things. So I felt like her character was introduced as nothing more than a means to an end. It's like, hey, we need her to eventually be the villain of this movie just so we can justify having a runtime here, because she's basically the leader of the Void, which is like where all the bad 20th Century Fox characters go, and she goes around killing people at will. She killed Chris Evans in a pretty funny bit in the film. Then like later on, next thing you know, oh, that's the other thing. There was a big monster that goes around like eating people, but that's also another reference to the Loki TV series. So if you hadn't seen the Loki season 1, you would have no idea like who this entity was. But like I said, it's based on another film.
I didn't know.
Which one? What'd you say, Sarah?
Deadpool was like, oh, from Loki season 1, episode 4.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. That was a joke, right? But like I said, if you hadn't like watched it, I was like, oh, okay, so it's from the Disney Plus series, right? But yeah, so what you guys think of her kind of as the villain like for this film? Because when I first got introduced to her, I was like, okay, she's a good like villain for like this moment, but I thought like the British guy was going to be like the villain throughout the entire thing. They were got to go back and deal with him, but they kind of felt like they shoehorned her back into the movie in the third act, which I don't know if that was like a script change due to the writer's strike and kind of a change in direction, but it definitely seemed like there was a shift there, because after they go back to their own universe, there's really no need for her to come back into the film at that point until the very end. So what did you think of her character, Rob?
I mean, I think that the actress does a good job, kind of playing up her evilness or whatever, or like she's basically an evil bitch. So I mean, I think that was good, but her arc and her, what I mean, the sense of conflict with Deadpool and Wolverine, and like that big, I don't know, it's not even a big final battle, but the battle before they return to their, their time. And it's just, it's a bit convoluted, it's a bit messy. But I thought the actress did a decent job with what she was given, but that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, her presentation, especially like her psychic powers, like in some instances was visually disturbing. Let's just call it that way. So she definitely did have a disturbing presence in the film. Not knocking her like her performance here, but just like pretty much like her character is basically just served to be like the villain. Like she's not really bringing in like a real serious threat or anything like that. She doesn't really have a big connection to either one of the characters. Like she's not a character that they brought back from like her past that comes back around. She's just here just to be the villain, and that kind of felt a little too plain for me. Am I being a little harsh there, Sarah?
Not really. I think that she was good only really in the sense that her powers were not like she overpowered both Deadpool and Wolverine. so that them like their plan to get her and defeat her or whatever actually had to be interesting instead of them just like fighting. But otherwise, I liked Matthew McFadden's character a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah, I was not expecting Tom Wamsgams to show up, but I'm real happy that
I only remember him as Mr. Darcy.
I
Yeah.
don't think anybody here's seen the show Succession, but he plays an absolute slime ball in that. So yeah, it was good to see him.
Yeah, I thought he was really funny too.
He was fine. I think the I think the villainess here was there because we needed some sort of antagonist, and it seemed like she was too serious for all the craziness and silliness that was going on. But I never felt that she
Yeah.
was a threat. I mean, her plan to eventually go back and take over time or whatever it was, it's like I don't feel any stakes in all of this. I
Right.
don't feel any sense of urgency or she's threatening. I do wonder, is that complete baldness thing something in the Xavier family where all of the children just go bald?
Don't ask that question, please. Just
I'm
don't ask, because you know that
Someone knows the answer to that.
right there is a
Someone-
practical answer, and then there's like a nerd answer that has like 3 encyclopedias of like.
I think Rick was
backstory.
asking. I think Rick was asking does the carpet match the drapes?
Well, no, that was nowhere near my mind. That finger thing was a little odd,
Mhm.
but you know, I never felt that she was a real threat.
Well,
she's
did
just
you want her to
there.
be a real threat, or did you want her to be not serious?
I wanted her to, well, maybe not be as serious, because it just seemed so odd to have kind of this really wild, over the top, silly
Yeah.
this situation, and then I'm going to destroy the world, and then
And
let me
she's
throw.
like instigating all those serious moments too between them and stuff. I
Yes,
agree with that.
so-
I think that it would have been fine if she wasn't really a threat, but also wasn't serious.
I think she was
Maybe
fine
fun
being
story.
like. I think she was fine being like the villain of the Void and like the kind of like that universe they set up like there. It's like when they brought her out, it was like, oh, I'm gonna destroy every timeline in the entire Marvel universe. Where it's kind of like, okay, now you guys are like stretching it a little too thin now.
yeah.
And at that point, Matthew McFadden should have come back in as the main villain.
Yeah. So this is when we start getting cameos, and this film becomes cameo mania. I think the first cameo here was the introduction of Dogpool and Nicepool. What was
I
your
know who
thoughts
they
on
are.
the introduction of the nice the Deadpool character? Which I'm gonna say this. When he was first introduced, I didn't think he was that funny, but then when they brought him back later on, I thought the character got far better than his initial introduction. I felt like with this whole segment, they kind of ran the joke on a little too hard there, but then they did bring it back towards the end. What do you think here of the dog and obviously Ryan Reynolds, a nice guy?
Well, we
It's
got to hear his
fine.
Canadian accent.
Yeah,
Very-
I picked that up too, where it's like,
I think that was a little
it's-
put on, wasn't it?
Oh no, I think it was on purpose because it's like
yeah, he's Canadian.
Yeah, I
The-
did
go
like
ahead.
this. I just like
Lady
Lady
in
in
Red.
Red playing, but that's about it. You know, it's just a dumb kind of shticky gimmick.
I've never seen the Gene Wilder movie, by the way.
A few people noted this, like when him and the other Deadpool are like, breaking the fourth wall, then he turns around and be like, oh, I could play this game too. He just looks at the camera and says, the proposal. And then like you just hear like a pin drop like in my movie theater. And apparently the few other theaters that, people went to got kind of the same reaction. I was kind of like, oof.
Yeah.
Oh,
My theater was interesting. It was like a pin drop, and then it was the loudest laugh of the whole
Really?
movie. Yeah,
I
I thought
My-
it was hilarious.
Because it took people like a minute to remember he was actually in that
It
movie.
was like we were waiting for him to say something more, and then when we realized he was done, that's what made it funny. I thought that was my favorite part.
My
That was
pin
what I
drop
liked.
moment was when Channing Tatum did his stupid joke about
the things that
what
never
his
work.
dad coming out of his dad's dick like rock hard or something, and I'm just like,
Mhm.
nobody laughed. Like it was like nobody laughed at his joke.
I
and
think people
even
were generally puzzled at my screening.
that was weird.
They
Yeah.
none of them understood what he was saying.
Yeah.
They needed
Well,
something
yeah, that's the problem too. Yeah.
And I get, look, maybe I think Channing Tatum is from Alabama, so maybe they thought Alabama, Cajun, it's all the same Southern accent, but it was just so cartoonish, no pun intended, with
Well,
his
they were making
Cajun,
that
with his
joke.
Cajun drawl, and it's almost
I thought it was supposed to be French. That's
no,
I was like,
no,
is this
no, he's
Chinese
Cajun.
French?
He's
It's
Cajun.
It's Cajun, so it's
Cajun.
like Southern French because it said it's
Southern
supposed to be
French.
Louisiana.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, what, Taylor Kitsch is just not available anywhere?
Well, the joke is that
Yeah,
Channing Tatum was supposed to
was-
be it, and then he
yeah.
never was.
No, I get
Yeah,
again,
right,
Sarah.
that's what
You
the
keep
joke
missing
was.
this. I get
Yeah.
the jokes. They're
Yeah,
just
yeah.
not funny. All right.
Right.
I get the jokes.
No.
Sure.
And I
I highly doubt he gets the jokes, but
no,
that's
I
fine.
get the jokes that
no,
yeah.
I
they
also
kinda
got
thing.
the jokes and they were not funny. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's,
yeah. I mean,
fine.
that whole
So-
thing, and I know he's trying, and I know he's trying, do all that sort of thing. It's like I'm like, is he supposed to? Is he playing Boomhauser from King of the Hill? You might as
Well,
Well,
we'll explain that here in
Howard.
a second. But before we get to there, to me, the best part in this movie and the only part where I felt like this movie was really clicking was when Deadpool and Wolverine are driving around in this, what was it, like a Honda minivan playing Avril Lavigne, and then like Deadpool like finally figures out. I mean, Wolverine finally figures out that Deadpool was lying to him like the whole time. So they have like this big, like massive argument where Wolverine just absolutely like tears like Deadpool down, like to the point where it was like, okay, now it's time for me to kick your ass, and they just start fighting each other. The whole bit here of the fight is that it's not that neither character can die, but obviously they both have a healing factor, so they're like shooting each other and stabbing each other, knowing for the fact that they're just going to heal up from all the injuries. So they literally spend the entire night like just in the car, just like kicking the shit out of each other, and then you go to like. Yeah, so then like the next morning, it's like, Wolverine's like knocked out from exhaustion, and like Deadpool's just like wrapped around with like 6 different like seat belts, and this is where somebody jumps into the car, drives them away, and brings them to I guess the layer of forgotten superheroes, and this is where we get the introduction of our 3 Fox characters here. You get was it Jennifer Gardner returning as Elektra, who hasn't played the role in almost 20 years. That was the last time she was in that character, who, by the way, just observation, maybe just looking into it, she looked like she didn't want to be there. Like, she looked like she was the least interested in reenacting that role out of everyone else there. You got Wesley Snipes coming back as Blade, which I find absolutely hilarious because they brought Wesley Snipes back as Blade before they ever shot a single scene with Ali as Blade, even though they announced his movie 5 years ago. So
and
that to me
was
is
a joke there.
Yeah, they made reference to that too.
Well, we'll get to that too, because that's a hilarious part. Like the joke, I don't think landed the way that they thought that it did. But outside of that, then you have, of course, Channing Tatum as Gambit. Now the whole joke here is that he's been trying to be Gambit for like literally 15 years, and there's been talks about him doing the movie. There was basically a development plan, a script at one point, but for whatever reason, Fox never got the ball rolling on this character. And by the time it got to essentially where they were selling it to Disney, Channing Tatum's star had pretty much like fallen at that point. He wasn't really the ideal guy to play the role anymore, and for whatever reason, the film just absolutely fell apart. So now in this film, where we're introducing the multiverse, we get to introduce Channing Tatum, who is in a universe that we've never seen before, because as the joke goes on in the film, his film universe never actually materialized. So all of his bits was about the fact that he really wanted to play this character but never got the opportunity, but now he gets the opportunity now in this film. So
but was he supposed to be a joke? Because yes, we all get that Gambit is from Louisiana, but did the accent have to be like Waterboy type here, where you really almost never fully understood what he was saying? It just seems so absurd. And I get, when Electric Nachos, characters that were forgotten, and Gambit says, "Oh, never been." Look, yes, we get that. We get that. Fine. Congratulate yourselves on your cleverness. But I think the reason they never got to him was because he can't act. The only thing he knows how to do is take his clothes off. But other than that, he can't act.
Well, he doesn't do that in this film.
Well, better here. He was probably better here than in Magic Mike's Last Dance. So there's that. So I guess it's a plus.
Well, that's a movie that probably should never happen, all things considered, what's going on with it there. But like I said, to me, obviously he was playing up the Cajun accent hard, and it felt like to me, like with his introduction into the film, that they were going, "See, Fox, you should have let me play this character. I can do a Cajun accent. Like this is his unofficial." But it's like to me, this felt like his unofficial test screening for the fact that he wanted to be this character so bad, and this is the only opportunity to show the world.
Casted him if this was his audition, I would have said no. We're bringing back Taylor Kitsch.
Yeah, it was really like purposefully bad, I thought.
I don't know if it was purposely bad. I mean,
no,
maybe it could have been, but
the fact that he can't act.
You can tell that it was purposefully bad because Deadpool kept making fun of him.
Mm-hmm. Well, like I said, it was making fun of him because, like I said, his accent was like so strong. It was like nobody. Well, I think it felt like everyone else knew what he was saying, but Deadpool. And that was stupid. So, and then, like I said, you had Jennifer Gardner back here in this film, which I don't know what much to say about her. Like, she really doesn't have any presence in this film, like whatsoever, and it kind of feels like she didn't want to be there, like at all. Like,
what I mean, is she still contractually obligated to appear in Electra? I mean, the spinoff did not work.
No, the spinoff, because I don't think anyone actually saw it. The spinoff. Yeah. So she was in the Daredevil movie in 2002. And then, like 3 years later, she was in a spin-off movie, but that spin-off movie only made like 57 million, like worldwide, and because it didn't do well at all, like they pretty much like killed the character off there.
Now that we've got all of these characters coming, you do realize that in theory, Electric Nachos can come back into the TV Deadpool with was it Charlie Cox who's playing Deadpool? Mm-hmm. She can join forces with Echo. And go off after that.
Well, here's the thing though, because the girl who played Elektra in the Netflix series, she's on like a different television show altogether now. But they can always pull her back, and I mean,
no, because we've got the multiverse. We've got the multiverse, so we can just collide all of these worlds together. Free your mind.
Mm-hmm. Nothing really matters anymore, right? That's just what we'll say to each other. But and then of course, we also had Wesley Snipes return as Blade, which to me is hilarious on a multitude of levels. That, like I said, they brought him back as Blade before they shot a single scene with Ali as the character, and then he makes a joke like later in the film, talk about there's only one Blade, and there's only going to be one Blade, and then like Deadpool kind of looks to the camera. Now here's the thing. I think the joke was supposed to be when he said there's only going to be one Blade, and he looks over, it's like, well, we do have a Blade movie in development now, but here's where it's even funnier, because that film is absolutely falling apart, and I don't think they realize how bad the production of that movie was when they wrote that joke. So in their minds, they're thinking, oh, well, there's going to be another Blade in the next couple of years, but in reality, it's like, no, you're probably going to end up being the only Blade, because this movie is an absolute dumpster fire.
Jacob,
at this point.
I'm not convinced, because they did have a Furiosa line here.
No. They had multiple Furiosa lines.
Yeah.
Well, then they had the
whole reference. And
the bad guys come out in like Wasteland.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes. Like, but then they said, behold your Queen Furiosa when Sabretooth, when Sabretooth comes out. And I'm thinking, yes. And I'm thinking if that was recent, then they must have known the production difficulties for Blade. And that's why that was thrown in there. I don't believe that it was because this was filmed before all the difficulties. They've been having them for 5 years, so it's nothing new. So
I did enjoy some of the commentary about how like this whole multiverse thing is not sustainable. Like we can't keep doing this. Like kind of like ribbing the MCU while being a part of it. And I realize that it's like so much of this is like meta commentary on itself, and that's also a way of not being a way of avoiding criticism too. It's like, oh, I get it. You're making fun of yourself, and you're so self-aware that you're so clever and smart. That doesn't mean you're a good movie. Sorry, you know what I mean? It's like I see it. I don't care.
Yes, exactly. I get the jokes. I just don't think they're funny. Yeah. When Wesley Snipes appears, I was surprised that there was not mass cheering or celebration or high-five, pumping the air or anything like that. It was surprisingly muted. It was like more like, like Oh, there wasn't excitement, and I was surprised. I don't know how it was with you guys. I'm curious if anyone in the theaters like was cheering and celebrating and going,
I had to
"Yay!"
I had to
No,
lean over and whisper to my brother who they all were as they came in because he didn't know.
I did like seeing Toad, in that one scene where it's like, oh, hey, that's cool. That was
Oh,
about it.
I
Yeah, it was
couldn't
like
remember.
Toad,
I couldn't remember
Azazel,
Pyro.
Lady
When
Deathstrike.
I was saying
when
Lady Deathstrike was there. Yeah.
Yeah.
when they said Pyro, it's like, oh, okay, now I know
Oh,
who
the
you
guy
are.
from X2. Hey, what's up?
Yes, like I couldn't
Mhm.
remember. I don't know who this person is.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I remember his character from the old X-Men movies, but it was kind of weird. I thought they were going to make more note to him, but it's like, no, we just throw this character away just like everybody else. So yeah, so now the whole plan is that, well, in order to get to the out of the void, we have to go back to Cassandra Nova and then somehow trick her into letting us go somehow. So they drive back in their little beat up van that they kick the crap out of each other in, and they go do the whole superhero fight thing, which I mean, it looks pretty cool. Like I said, you're seeing, a lot of these guys kind of in costume fighting for the first time in many, many years, or for the first time ever for the most part. So you kind of see what Gambit would have looked like in a movie had that ever actually materialized. You get to see Wesley Snipes back as Blade, even though he's 62 years old. Still looks pretty good as Blade. Looks better than Elektra, even though Elektra's like 10 years younger than him, which is kind of weird, but that's a whole other conversation there.
Ben
So
Affleck will do that to you.
yeah, too. And they did make a joke about Ben Affleck in this film too, because it was like they mentioned that Daredevil had died in this movie. It's like, oh, Daredevil. He's like, it's okay. And it's like okay, we were taking a shot at like Daredevil Force as well. So, but we'll get to this point of the movie where, like I said, they have to essentially use Cassandra's powers to get out of the multiverse, to go back to the TVA, to their own universe here. It ultimately works because she stole apparently the little the little portal opening thing from like one of the Doctor Stranges that she somehow killed in the void. So they actually use the whole MCU pack to get back to their real
And
world.
skin.
Mhm.
That's what you said, which is really creepy. Just the thought.
Yeah. Well, that was saying it's a reference to what was it? It was the X-Men 3 with the original Juggernaut and like the really like stupid looking helmet. So like I knew that they were like playing up that whole portion of it as well. So, but they get back to their own universe, and this is where they meet the Deadpool. Was it Deadpool Corpse? Is that what they call him in the film? And you guys remember?
The Deadpool core. I mean,
All the Deadpools?
all the Deadpools.
Yeah, literally all
yeah.
the Deadpools. Yeah, so this is the point where all the Deadpools show up. You get Nice Pool back. You get Lady Deadpool. So obviously, we all know that Lady Deadpool was in fact played by Blake Lively in the movie. So she did play because
I didn't know
I
that.
did not know that actually.
didn't know
That's
that.
you
hilarious.
didn't know that? Because
Yeah,
I
no.
mentioned it. I mentioned it earlier in the show. I thought you guys had knew already. So
No,
Yeah,
we're
said
Gossip Girl.
you said you were gonna mention Blake Lively like later, and I was
yeah,
like,
that's
okay.
what I was referring to later because
Okay.
she was
Oh,
in the
okay.
movie.
There you go. Yeah, no, I didn't. I had no idea. I probably should have figured it, but yeah, I was like, man.
Yeah.
like
I mean, when I saw her, I was like, okay, this is clearly a reference to Blake Lively because, like I said, Ryan Reynolds had mentioned her a couple of times in the movie, so it wasn't a big shock to me when she showed up. I guess one of the biggest surprises, in case you guys didn't know, which if you guys didn't know Blake Lively, you probably didn't know Matthew McConaughey was also in this film as well. He played the cowboy Deadpool, so that was another one of the secret
That's not
cameos.
too
in this
much
film.
of
Yeah,
a
you could
surprise.
recognize his voice.
Yeah.
And he was actually more intelligible than Channing Tatum.
Mm-hmm. So, like I said, you get the fight with all the Deadpools, and of course, Nice Pool comes back, and then it's hilarious because they get ready for like this big like blow up battle, and Deadpool just assumes that he can regenerate like all the other ones. It just so happens he's the only one that can't, so he just gets like shot up and like mutilated
He
and whatnot.
knew.
And his head gets blown off.
Mm-hmm. I think he wanted
Wanted
him
that
to get. No, he wanted the dog and he wanted those guns. Like that was like the whole point.
Yeah,
Like
the
he knew at
guns,
some point, like he was gonna get those two guns because that's what he like really truly wanted here. So you get the Wolverine and Deadpool versus the army of Deadpools, and a fun little in sequence fight here where they're killing each other to Madonna's theme song, which is basically the same song they played in the trailer for so
prayer.
long. Yeah, like a
Like a
prayer, right?
prayer.
So they have this big, huge battle. Then, of course, at the end, they realize, oh, wait, all the other Deadpools have regeneration too. So we basically just wasted our time for like the last 5 minutes trying to kill everyone because they can't die. But that's when, what's the guy's
Pete.
name? Pete comes back, and Pete is like, "Oh no, these guys are with me," and then everyone's like, "Oh, you know Pete? Yeah, Pete's an awesome guy." And like that's what Pete comes in to save the day.
Was dumb. That was dumb.
That is like, okay, I don't think it's a plot hole technically, but it's such a obvious plot device that it's like, okay, this is insulting to my intelligence. And I know that this whole movie's like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, oh, hey, let's just create a solution out of fucking thin air. But it's just, if a movie, and I've said this before, if a movie does not take itself seriously, I do not know why I should take it seriously. And that's not to mean I can't enjoy it or laugh at the joke. It is a purposeless exercise. You are not trying to tell a story. You're literally throwing shit at the wall and hoping that it's entertaining. And to be fair, look, this movie's going to make a shitload of money. It's not going to matter what I think. You know what I mean? So who cares what I have to say? But really, it's just a whole bunch of why.
Yeah. Everyone could enjoy their Peter.
Yeah, I agree with you as far as the plot goes, but like this particular scene, they could have just as easily had them like beat up all the other Deadpools and then like run down the into the thing without Peter showing up, you know?
Yeah.
Like him showing up was just another joke. And it didn't like the plot was. You're right.
To answer Mitch's question real quick, there was no Panda Pool in the movie that I recall, but the other two were there. So yeah, they had varying lines of Deadpool in this film.
Well, I think I saw one in a kilt, and then I think I saw one with the Welsh flag on it.
Yeah.
And
wasn't the kid one? Wasn't that Ryan Reynolds' kid?
I don't know. I have no idea if that was his kid or not. It wouldn't surprise me, but
That's what
I don't know. Well, that would make a lot of sense.
I'm not sure which one. If it was the kid or the baby, or what one of his kids was in the movie.
And yeah, I should care because
it's his kid.
Blake Lively's in it.
Huh?
And these kids are in it.
Oh,
it's a cameo.
Yeah. Oh, how wonderful!
Yes, actually, both of their kids. I haven't been
that excited since one of Demi Moore's daughters was in Striptease.
So actually, both of their kids were in the movie. So the oldest kid played Kid Pool, and then the baby played Baby Pool. So both of Ryan and Blake's kids were in the film. So it's falling. It's funny because it's following the same line that happened in Thor, obviously, because Chris Hemsworth's real life daughter played at the end of Thor: Love and Thunder, and then they alluded to Chris Hemsworth's in the movie. Like the running joke was like Deadpool trying to figure out why was Thor crying for him. What they actually did is that they just basically, I guess, like added Deadpool's face to a scene in Thor: The Dark World. It made it seem like that Thor was crying for Deadpool, and it was like, well, why is he crying for me? And then of course they never actually explained like what happened.
He had a weird scar on his face though.
And the weird, well, I don't know if it's a weird thing, but I had to actually look up my review for The Dark World to even remember if I'd seen it.
I forgot that Love and Thunder existed.
Well, let's be honest. None of the Thor movies have particularly been very good. If we're being
I like the first one.
Yeah, the first one was
great.
The first one, no, right? Although I needed an explanation as to why Jeremy Renner was in it.
Because he's in the Avengers.
Yeah.
No, I had no idea. I had no idea who he was. It's like
that was a cameo.
That was his introduction.
I did ask, what's Jeremy Renner doing here?
You know,
yeah, they added that
scene
Locker,
on right?
when they cast him for the Avengers.
Yeah, I mean, I saw. Yeah, no, I know, but I didn't know who the character was.
The same way they introduced him in that movie. So
yes,
you wouldn't
but
have
very briefly. And for those of us who never read comic books,
that's why they tacked it on after they finished filming that movie. That's why it didn't make any sense. Because they wanted to include the character because they were like hyping up the Avengers movie, but. They had already filmed the movie, so they just filmed him off in a reshoot and then like cut him into the scene.
Golly, you know, in the same way that I had to, the same way I literally thought I was hallucinating when Harry Styles came out in Eternals. I thought I was having like almost like a stroke. Like, am I really seeing this?
Yes. So this is where we get to the ending here. By the way, so you finally get Hugh Jackman in the Wolverine mask, which I'm pretty sure a lot of people in the film marked out for. Here's what I'll say about this film before we talk about the ending real quick. This to me felt like we were bringing back that old era of like the MCU films from like 5 or 6 years ago, where Martin Scorsese labeled it a theme park ride, because this film felt very much like just like those old Avengers movies where it's like, oh my god, it's that character from that movie, and oh my god, it's that character from that movie. Like the audience clapped, like we were back to like the audience. Like, I know for a fact there's gonna be like several like audience reactions videos based on this movie where when like Blade walks into the room and everyone's like, oh my god, it's Blade, and people are like screaming in the background. Like this was very much a callback to that era of the MCU, which to be fair, they haven't really had the luxury of having for the last several years now, because let's be honest, all the new characters that they introduced, no one is giving a single crap about. But there's still characters in this universe that people care about, so they're gonna get the pro wrestling markout moments when so and so puts on his mask, or so and so is like back in his costume throwing cards at people and stuff like that. So, but then we get to the ending. Like I said, the ending is kind of forced. What's her name? Nova comes back and she wants to destroy all the universes simultaneously. So Deadpool and Wolverine have to stop her by overloading a machine that destroys her. And then of course it's like, well, you got the two characters that have the regenerative healing factor, so of course they're going to survive. It's like, why wouldn't they survive?
No, they're not, according to Paradox. Who has to give a very long and long explanation for all of this.
It was a long. Just real quick, it was a long explanation just for him to go, well, yeah, you didn't take into account that two of us would be down here, so that's why it didn't work.
I just thought it was funny that, like, he's explaining like the situation or whatever afterwards to like that lady. I don't know who that lady was, that black lady, but like she was like a cop or something.
Yeah, I think she was like part of Loki or something.
And, like explaining like the sacrifice they made, and then like Deadpool says something. He's like, "Fuck." That was pretty good. That was
because he almost BS'd his way out of it until they showed up, and it was like, yeah. So they explode, and of course they show off Hugh Jackman's ass because he's 55 years old, but he still looks ripped. And like I said, they don't drug test in Hollywood, so it's like, why not take as much HGH as you possibly can? I mean, like, why wouldn't you?
Well, you gotta pick up a young twink post divorce,
Yeah, well, it does make up for that divorce joke that Reynolds threw out during the movie, which did kind of surprise me that Hugh Jackman doesn't mind getting jokes about his divorce.
Well, you think he liked it? That's wife? I mean, let's be honest.
Well, I don't know.
I mean, there was a couple of divorce jokes in this film, and
there were a couple of jokes about his musical career, like, "Oh no, you better stop, or he'll break out into Music Man," which would have been better. We had 76 trombones playing.
Yep. So that's the kind of the end of the film. Once that's resolved here, this version of Wolverine just decides that he's gonna retire into Deadpool's universe, and that's kind of where it's left off. So it's left off in a position where if they want to do Secret Wars here in 3 years and bring these characters back to have them be in that film, they can. Or if they just want to say, because moving in another direction, they can too. So this is the new jump off point now. Because like I said, Logan, I guess Logan is no longer canon in the MCU universe now, because we left off of Logan being the end of the Wolverine character, and now they have it nice and open again.
In the MCU anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Logan wasn't in the MCU anyway.
But they had to jump between the Logan movie and this movie, and I guess the MCU timeline, in order to make the whole thing work. So I mean, they don't
get to adopt the old timeline. They have to make their new timeline.
Look, the X-Men timeline is already hopelessly convoluted. It does not make any sense. Let alone
there was already time travel in the X-Men continuity.
Yeah.
Now they added the multiverse on top of that. So yeah, it's just a little bit of a mess. But
you just can't make any of this fit.
So for any of you guys who are wondering about post-credit scenes, the only post-credit scene is that Deadpool shows up at the very, very end of the movie to show that Chris Evans did in fact say all those horrible things that Deadpool alleged that he said at the midpoint of the film.
Oh, but weren't you crying during that series of clips from the past productions, or you got to see all the other actors who were in
so like I said,
lobbying with Green Day playing there? I mean,
no.
Even give you the feels The feel.
Well, here's the problem. Like, obviously, it was a big swan song montage for the Fox version of the Marvel movies. But the problem is like, out of all the movies they showed, like only 3 of them were any good. So it's like I don't think anyone was crying over Fan Four Stick or the whatever that well, there was a really terrible Wolverine movie. Not the one with Deadpool, but the one that came like immediately after that one. That one was not
The
good
Wolverine
either.
where he's in
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one
I never saw that one.
Yeah, that one was not good either. So it's like half the movies that they're expecting people to have an emotional reaction to, it's like these movies sucked. So it's like I'm not really too broken up. I don't get to see these.
Well, I wasn't crying over that part or anything, but I did like that part because I was expecting this movie to be like, here, let's celebrate the MCU, but instead they kind of celebrated the old Fox instead.
Yeah,
And it's kind of like
it was basically they're like, hey, look, anyone who was involved in the Fox era of movies, this is your last ride. So let's give Wesley Snipes his last rites, Jennifer Garner her last rites, and let's just wave goodbye to everyone from that Bryan Singer era of X-Men movies. We can't mention his name anymore.
Which really strange because Patrick Stewart pops up in Multiverse of Madness.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, to be fair, it is funny that Deadpool did make the reference in this film. And it was like, you guys paid all this money for Chris Evans, but you couldn't get Ian McKellen to come back as Magneto for one movie.
So, or Michael Fassbender at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but he wanted Ian McKellen to come back to be Magneto in this film, and he didn't get it. So that I thought was a pretty funny bit. But yeah, so that's pretty much the end for Deadpool and Wolverine. So this was the tie-in between the absolutely awful Marvel's movie, which I think did far more damage for the MCU brand. And then what only thing we have to look forward to now after this is the Black Captain America movie, Brave New World, which I'm pretty sure you guys saw a trailer for that one in your theater. Yeah.
Like,
so
Captain America? I thought he was just going to do TV shows.
It's a Captain America movie without Chris Evans. They're putting Anthony Mackie as the role of Captain America now. And on top of all that, this film's been reshot, no joke, 2 times now. So the production budget of this movie is reaching $400 million. They're still not finished with it yet. And on top of all that, you're probably going to look at a movie that's going to have to make, what, $1.2 billion just to break even when it's all said and done?
But you do have Harrison Ford in it, so there's that.
Harrison Ford as Red Hulk.
Mm-hmm. He's the bad guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was walking into the theater as the trailer was playing. Luckily, I got to the theater 25 minutes late, so I only had 5 minutes of previews. It was wonderful.
Did you see the Alien trailer?
Yeah, I saw that. This was actually
a Gladiator trailer.
Oh, they didn't show the Gladiator trailer. They did show Red One.
I still haven't
showed the Gladiator trailer. I was
I haven't seen the Gladiator trailer even since it's come out because I heard it was
so bad. It looks like they just were like, let's make another Gladiator movie.
And let's play Rick Ross in the background too. That'll get the kids.
It does have Joseph Quinn in it, so I'll watch it.
I don't know who that is.
Who?
That's what I was gonna say.
No.
Who?
He's gonna play Johnny Storm in the new Fantastic Four movies.
That still doesn't narrow it
down. Don't they have? Doesn't this one also have Pedro Pascal, who's the new Mr. Fantastic?
Oh yeah.
So sick of him.
So 2 Fantastic Four actors in that movie.
Oh, wonderful.
So that's the future of the MCU at this point, but I guess let's wrap up our thoughts on the Deadpool movie. For me, like I said, this is going to be a split between casual MCU fans and hardcore MCU fans. If you're a hardcore comic book nerd and you love all the references and the callbacks and the fan service, this will probably be your best movie of the year. If you're just kind of in the middle casual moviegoer, this is certainly an entertaining film. But like I said, I don't see this as anything that's going to move the needle for kind of the future of where they're going, especially with what's coming out now. Like, I think somebody said it earlier that Tom from Midnight's Edge was basically said that this is basically an island in a sea of piss. Like, this may be a decent movie, but everything else surrounding it is still like absolutely like awful. So this is kind of like your last ride film that, like I said, it's going to be built on basically references and nostalgia and memorabilia, but outside of that, it really doesn't have anything else going for it. So this is for your hardcore Deadpool Fox fans. I think of this fair as I possibly can here. I'm gonna give this like a 2.5 out of 5. I think that's pretty much where I'm gonna lay onto it, because I know like it's gonna be a very polarizing movie, but I think all the people who have been waiting for something to scream and holler at an MCU film since Endgame are probably gonna run out and go see this movie. So, Rob, what's your final thoughts on Deadpool Wolverine?
Yeah, it's, you know, I will say this: it is not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, there's very few things I could really hang my hat on. You know, there's a few things that made me laugh. There were a few, soundtrack musical moments that made me smile or that I enjoyed. I liked some of the stuff that Hugh Jackman was able to sort of conjure up on a dramatic level in terms of trying to give his character some gravitas, some backstory, some some kind of cathartic moment. And I actually thought that was good. I thought I actually identified even a little bit later with his psychology of, not wanting to, accept the help of a group, and then it's too late. And then you don't, you've realized what you've lost in the process. So I think those things are good. I think that, it moves very quick. It's paced pretty well. Like, it doesn't drag, even if it's annoying, in terms of its camp and all of that. But all in all, it's just not a very good movie. There's no ideas here, and not every movie needs to have ideas. That's okay. But I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5.
Sarah.
I thought I liked Deadpool 2. Okay, so I thought that it was about as funny as Deadpool 2, but the plot definitely was a downgrade, and I thought that Logan kind of played the same sort of filled the same sort of role as Josh Brolin did in the second one, and I liked the way. Hang on. I liked the way Josh Brolin filled it a little bit better. Thought he was a little bit more original, and I thought that the way they tried too hard to make the theme come together in this one. The theme in the other one was like it was on the nose, but it was on the nose in a kind of meta way that worked. And then this one was like they just like kept putting in scenes that were like, here's the theme and here's where the emotional journey is, but none of it worked. So they kept putting more. If they could have like had it work well, they could have just done 1 or 2 scenes like that, and it would have been much better. But I enjoyed it as far as just being an enjoyable movie, and it didn't feel like a MCU movie to me. So I liked that part about it a lot. It felt like a regular Deadpool movie. It didn't feel like it was part of the MCU at all, except for the part where he was being interviewed by Happy or whatever. And I didn't like that part because it reminded me of the MCU. So I liked that it was just kind of like its own movie, a sequel to Deadpool 2, and had a lot of the same ideas going on in it. And I like Deadpool 2, so I'm not like mad about them just doing more. But it did bother me that they had Vanessa break up with him. That seems like a bad character thing for
He's
her.
a loser.
Yeah, because he gave up on himself, man.
Her whole shtick is that she's the faithful girlfriend, and that's how she's like. They always have to find a way to get her out of the movie.
That's my problem with like a lot of the plot here is very, very thin. Let's be honest. Like, the whole setup here is that we needed this to happen to justify us even making this film, and they don't just want to come out and say, "Hey, look, we needed this film because Disney is desperate for a hit, so we're gonna throw as much memorabilia as you possibly can in hopes that you'll be marking out too much to realize that there isn't much of a plot here to this movie." I don't think that's what
they were doing, though. I think they were actually making a sequel to Deadpool 2. I don't think that it was taken over by the MCU stuff. No. It's basically just a slightly worse movie than Deadpool 2. It
And you
doesn't
like
really have
Deadpool
the
too.
Marvel hand in it. But it was a problem because they needed Vanessa to be out of the story, and they'd already killed her off, so they couldn't really do anything else. And I thought it was funny that everyone complained that they killed her off in the last movie to get her out, and then instead of doing that, they like ruined her character to get her out in this one.
Yeah.
Like,
they brought her back just to ruin her character. That sounds about right. What
yeah.
did you give us a number? Grade, I guess.
It's either a 3 or a 3.5. I
Out of
think,
5?
yeah, I liked it. Like, if I give it a 3, it would be like on Letterboxd, it would be like a 3 with a like, or a 3.5 maybe. I don't know. I have to think
Let's
about it.
give it a
But
solid 3. Let's give it that one.
yeah, it could be a 3.5. It depends on what if I like more about it when I watch it again, or if the things that I dislike kind of come up a little bit more when I watch it again. Because I thought I was like just like enjoying it. Like I enjoyed the like the pan across while they were fighting all the Deadpools, and I enjoyed the music, even though it was like unoriginal the way they did the needle drops, just kind of like the same thing over and over again. It's just it's not. I don't look at Deadpool movies as like cinema. I look at them as like if it can make me laugh and like make me enjoy myself, then that's all it needs to be. So as far as that's concerned, it succeeded because it made me laugh. It made me laugh 5 minutes.
Well, Rick, go ahead and tell everyone why this is worse than Argyle, because all the hunky actors you don't like were in it.
And they are hunky. I will give them that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first, I didn't laugh once in this whole movie. All right, so I don't know why you were rolling in the aisles. I was not. I was losing my patience. Though there was one part where you mentioned that his interview with Happy and Deadpool Wade says, "I don't want to spend my life being an annoying one-trick pony." I'm thinking, yeah, that's all you've been for 3 movies, an annoying one-trick pony. There's nothing funny or original about you. When I left the theater, I did think that this was actually worse than Argyle. I thought, yeah, this is just so bad, so long. I didn't find one bit funny. I didn't find one bit clever. I was not impressed with anything. But then I got to think, did I leave this theater like with burning hatred, like anger, fury? No, I left with
Exactly.
I left with nothing. I left with just a feeling of nothing, of emptiness, of just of people who are far too old physically to really enjoy this and think that this is a delightful romp. I don't need the shout outs, especially since I don't get some of the shout outs, and I really don't care. So I thought things like, oh yeah, Paul Rudd finally aged. I could have done with things. I could have done without things like that. I didn't think there was anything funny about that. So it's right now going to be a fight between this and Argyle to see which one is really worse. I'm going to have to give maybe a slight edge to Argyle, but then I have to think, which would I rather watch? Would I rather watch Deadpool, Wolverine, or would I rather watch Argyle? And I'm going back and forth. I might even watch Argyle, even though it has Henry Cavill. And I'll say this: Henry Cavill will be in 2 of my worst films of the year.
I wonder why that's the case.
Because he can't act. How many times do I have to go over this, Jacob? It has nothing to do with the physical perfection that is Henry Cavill.
Sure.
Yeah. He's. But I still got Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare to go through, so that maybe that'll be 3 films because he just can't act.
Well, Argyle and that one are both in my top 10 worst of the year. So
yeah,
just saying.
What is? Let me check my
by the way,
top 10.
I would give it like a 1 because I can't give it anything lower apparently.
I know
you can give it a 0 if you want.
Okay,
to,
I'll give it a 0. I'll give it a 0.
But did you give Argyle 0?
Yes, I give it like a negative.
Okay.
I mean, Jacob's seen a lot more like the cringy LGBTQ trans fucking movies than I have. So
yeah Argyle is number 10 on my list. So yeah, because I saw.
Was it Babes?
Because I need to fill out my worst of list. That's why I watched.
Yeah,
Babes. I saw the TV Glow, Drive Away Dolls, Magical
turns on the
Negroes,
radio.
Challengers, Monkey Man, Lisa
Monkey Man.
Frankenstein, Madam Web.
No, I do want to watch
Book
Madam
of
Web.
Clarence. Yeah, so there's a few of them.
Madam Web was a bad enjoyable film.
Madam Web was bordering on so bad it's actually good, but it didn't quite get there.
And you get Sydney Sweeney on the table dancing.
That's right.
To Britney Spears in 2004.
Toxic.
Yeah. Oof. Well, I think when they just made this announcement, this is earlier today that Marvel just made this announcement. So, as you know, they are notorious for taking male characters and essentially replacing them with female counterparts. So, let me introduce you to the female counterpart of Deadpool, the new Deadpool, who is also named Deadpool. So apparently what they did said Deadpool is dead. Long live Deadpool. Go get your first look at Wade's daughter, Ellie, taking the mantle in 2 new covers. Follow her mission, Deadpool, by writers Cody Ziegler and Alexis Quasiera, whatever his name is, and art by Andrea DeVito. So yeah, they turned Deadpool into a woman too. So
she's going to have the same personality?
Does he also have cancer?
I don't know. No, because that would be a weakness, and women are not allowed to be weak. So yeah, she can't have cancer.
Well,
how does she have the powers?
What the power of positivity?
I don't know. You can go pick up your copy though in November.
And she has the same.
I'm gonna forget.
She's going to be snarky and obnoxious. She's going to be an annoying one-trick pony.
Pretty much. I mean, why not?
Why?
She's going to swear a lot.
Because she's a more diverse counterpart. Now she's not a straight white male like Deadpool is. So. That's what makes the characters better.
Deadpool straight.
Well, not the way he was. Not the way he was inserting the claws into the guys, and the way that.
Let's just put it this way: Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds both have a questionable history, and we'll just leave it at that. So,
and they were when they were tied together, and he apparently, Deadpool was apparently excited about that. So,
hey, if you guys like homoeroticism, this film is chucked to the brim, full of it. So,
yeah, I'm sorry. People were saying, like, oh, the bike riders is a lot of homoeroticism. I'm like, there's so much more homoeroticism in this movie, and it's overt. It's for laughs or whatever, but it's like, okay, yeah, we get it. You're kind of gay, like we get it.
I was gonna say something was going on at the night. Let's say there's a fire at some kind of nightclub in San Diego with the Comic-Con thing going on. I thought that was actually something important, but it's like, man, some gas thing caught on fire. It's not a big deal. Outside of that, yeah, so that's our review for Deadpool.
Did you give it a grade?
Yeah, I gave it a 2.5.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Out of 5. Now you would know that if you were actually like paying attention to what I was saying.
Nah,
the entire show.
So
jackass. So I'm trying to think of what's coming out next week. We're probably not going to be back here next week because I think next week is the Trap movie, which is the M. Night Shyamalan film, and we can like do that one on a bar room or in a couple of weeks when that film actually comes out. So I think the next time we'll be back here will probably be like around the time that Aliens comes out, which will be in a couple of weeks when we do the Friday night show. So until then, I'm gonna go ahead and give you guys a chance to promote anything that you have coming up. And I think we're gonna start with our quarterly guest, Miss Sarah. So this is your time to promote anything that you have coming up, anything that you want the people to know about.
Nothing. I'm going to be in real life.
Mm-hmm. By the way, I love your portrait over there of the white horse, especially given the context of what we had to experience during the... I know, I see that too. Just especially given the context of what we saw during the Olympics opening ceremony, which we'll probably talk about this Tuesday on the bar room. But yeah, there's a lot of white horses being shown here.
Normal white horse. It's not symbolic.
It's not symbolic of like death in Hades.
Oh, I thought it was symbolic of cocaine.
No, we'll talk about the Olympics
horses
later
for
on.
Heroin. Okay, Rick, learn your drug lingo.
I know for a Mexican, I know nothing about drugs. Yeah. Not even when the Mexican kingpin was arrested here in El Paso. What I've got.
I feel like for a reality show, you should just be forced to like live in raw ass for like a week, and then just see what happens.
I've got some cousins out there, so I might be all right.
Might.
Well, I ran into one. Actually, I ran into one of my mom's cousins, so I'm assuming they're related somehow. What I've got coming up is I'm still working through my Summer Under the Stars reviews, which will be published to coincide with that particular star on that day. I will be watching Coal Miner's Daughter tomorrow with Sissy Spacek introducing the film. It's first time viewing for me. I also have I still have the Golden Girls retrospective, Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. So yeah, that's pretty much it. More reviews, and yeah, that's it. And reviews for Deadpool, and I'll decide if it's worse than Argyle back then.
Yeah, give it a little bit of time. That's all I'm saying. Rob, what do you got coming up? I saw you did a stream earlier tonight.
Yeah, I did a 5-year anniversary stream on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with my friend Trevor. We did about an hour on that one, and turned out really well. So you can check that out on my YouTube, which I don't have linked anywhere, but you know, it's fine. No, it's shit. I think it's just Rob Motto Movies is my username, so it's just search that on YouTube. But yeah, I have some reviews to catch up on. I'm kind of juggling my job, class, and you know, different streams throughout the week. So I'll be on the bar room on Tuesday. But if you're just kind of wanting to see what I'm up to, you can always check me out on my Twitter, which is there on the bottom of the screen. Other than that, I've got nothing going on.
All right. Let you guys know what I got coming up here on the channel over the next few days. This coming Sunday, we'll be doing the next episode of the Bible Lens. I'll be wrapping up my 3-part series on internal security. And we're talking about the people who reject the idea that you can't lose your salvation. They preach an alternate gospel. And we're going to talk about all the false gospels that are in the world that these people preach. That'll be on Sunday at 7 p.m. All the platforms here. Tuesday, we'll be back with the Bar Room. I don't think we have a movie review this week. There won't be any movies we're reviewing on the show, but we definitely will be giving a little light to this whole Olympics controversy, because it's probably the most blatantly demonic thing I think that I've seen in quite some time, to the point where it's like you can't even pretend they're not directly making references, mocking God and promoting demon worship, what we saw here tonight. We'll talk about that on Tuesday on the Bar Room. Like I said, we won't be here next Friday, because like I said, there's not really a movie that demands us being here. But and then the next time you'll see us review a movie, I'm pretty sure it's gonna be the M. Night Shyamalan movie Trap. So that's our next assignment. So for all you guys who joined me here on this show, Rob, Sarah, and Rick, thank you guys for joining us here. For everyone who joined us over in the chat, quick little shout out to you, Vanya, Cassie, who joined us earlier tonight, Leslie Tarkin, Mitch Ryan, Internal, and Keith over on our Rumble side of things. Thank you very much for joining us. We will see you guys hopefully on Sunday. If not, we'll see you on Tuesday. Adios, goodbye, and good night. Now we can hit the intro, well, the outro, and get out of here. Wave to the crowd.
Bye.
It's over. Go home.
Get the hell out! Get out! Get out! Get out!
Okay.
Get out! Get out!
You get the hell out!
Never mind who you thought I was. I'm Rick James, bitch.